if a person gets hurt on the football field, you don't give them 7 points if Tom Brady gets hurt.
Keegan was in here a few minutes ago saying that he disagreed with the injury rule that impacted Victor and Harris and said that it should be changed by the next Ryder Cup. I wanted to get your thoughts, not on how it impacted today, but just on the rule in general.
I think it's been in place since 1971. The U.S. have used it before. I think it's...
The Ryder Cup at Bethpage Black promised history, and it delivered, but not the kind anyone expected. The scoreline was almost an afterthought, buried beneath whispers of controversy, captains trading shots, and fans left wondering if the entire event had slipped into chaos. Something inside the rulebook cracked open, and the fallout is still burning. What really happened at Bethpage? Let's unravel the mess. The 2025 Ryder Cup at Bethpage Black was supposed to be a monument to American redemption. Home soil, raucous crowds, Keegan Bradley leading the U.S. into battle with all the weight of expectation. And yet, by the time Sunday's singles wrapped up, the headlines weren't about clutch putts or who sank the winning birdie. No, the conversation was hijacked by the arcane procedural grenade known as the envelope rule. Here's what went down. Viktor Hovland, one of Europe's sharpest weapons, withdrew with a neck injury. According to Ryder Cup tradition, sealed in an envelope before play begins, each captain pre-selects one name, the player who must sit out if the other side loses a man. This time, Harris English drew the short straw. With Hovland scratched, English was benched too, and instead of a replacement or a fight to the finish, the match was recorded as a half point for each team. On paper, the final tally, 15-13 in Europe's favor, doesn't look like a landslide, but the optics? Catastrophic. Instead of roaring comebacks, viewers got paperwork and compromise, and the US, desperate to claw back momentum, watched one of their players sidelined by nothing more than a technical clause. By the closing ceremony, the tension was thicker than New York humidity. Bradley's jaw was clenched, Donald was diplomatic, and fans were already arguing online about whether the envelope belongs in golf's future. Sunday night wasn't a celebration. It was the start of an inquest.
I mean, it was 25% of the points they needed to win, and nothing against Victor. I'm sure he's hurt and everything, but that rule has to change. Obviously, I think it's obvious now.
Keegan Bradley didn't bite his tongue. He didn't deflect. He didn't even mask the sting of defeat. Minutes after Europe lifted the trophy, Bradley sat down in front of cameras and detonated the soundbite that now defines Bethpage. It has to change. The captain wasn't talking about his roster, his strategy, or even the pressure of the home crowd. He was talking about the envelope rule, the bureaucratic booby trap that turned Harris English into collateral damage. Bradley painted it as a fairness issue, arguing that no player should be removed from competition for a reason beyond their control. English wasn't injured. He was ready to fight. And yet, because of golf's dusty, rarely used protocol, he never touched a club on Sunday. The timing amplified everything. Coming just minutes after America's loss, Bradley's demand played like an open wound broadcast live. Pundits called it sour grapes. Fans called it honesty. Social media turned it into a rallying cry, with clips of Bradley's press conference looped endlessly, set to captions like, "He's right," or "Excuses, excuses." Bradley didn't offer solutions. He admitted he had a few ideas, but specifics could wait. This was about planting the flag. America was wronged, and the rulebook was complicit. Whether intentional or not, Bradley shifted the narrative from performance to policy. Suddenly, it wasn't about Rory's putts or Rahm's dominance. It was about whether the Ryder Cup's most obscure rule just robbed Team USA of their shot at history. Quick question for you. Was Bradley standing up for fairness, or just venting because the US lost? Drop your take in the comments. I'm watching this debate unfold in real time.
Keegan was in here a few minutes ago saying that he disagreed with the injury rule that impacted Victor and Harris and said that it should be changed by the next Ryder Cup. I wanted to get your thoughts, not on how it impacted today, but just on the rule in general.
I think it's been in place since 1971. The US have used it before. I think it's happened in 1991 with Steve Pate.
Enter Luke Donald. If Bradley was the fiery spark plug of Bethpage, Donald was the ice bath. Calm, deliberate, and maddeningly unshaken, the European captain refused to be cornered by Bradley's fury. His response? A history lesson. Donald reminded anyone with a microphone that the envelope rule isn't some sneaky European trick. It has existed for decades, agreed upon by both teams before a single tee shot is struck. Every captain signs off, every player is aware, and the protocol is baked into the DNA of Ryder Cup procedure. If Bradley hated it, Donald implied, he should have raised the issue months ago, not in a sulking post-mortem after losing on home soil. To add sting, Donald wasn't dismissive of the human angle. He openly sympathized with both Harris English and Viktor Hovland, saying no one wants to see players sidelined. But his defense was rooted in principle. You can't rewrite the rules mid-battle just because the outcome stings. Donald even warned against Bradley's suggestion of reform without clarity, hinting that change for the sake of appeasement risks unraveling the fairness the rule was meant to guarantee. For Donald, this wasn't just about one half-point. It was about optics, the captain as statesman, defending tradition against emotional backlash. His posture allowed him to look like the grown-up in the room while Bradley looked raw and reactionary. And in a tournament where optics matter as much as scorecards, Donald left the press conferences not just as the winning captain, but as the defender of golf's fragile order.
They deserve it! They're in the States, they're in New York City, what do they expect? They know.
Doesn't it cross the line, some of this stuff?
Absolutely not.
Did you give some to Rory?
Every time he stepped on the first tee box.
As if the captains weren't enough, the crowd at Bethpage decided to audition for villain status. Luke Donald wasn't only sparring with Keegan Bradley, he was forced to take aim at the very fans who were supposed to make the Ryder Cup electric. His verdict? They crossed a line. This wasn't just polite golf clapping gone wrong. Donald cited jeers timed to players' swings, heckling of European families, and even an incident where Rory McIlroy's wife was struck by a flying beer. The supposed 12th man for Team USA morphed into an ungovernable mob, and Europe's captain made it clear that the atmosphere was toxic. His message was pointed: passion is fine, abuse is not. McIlroy himself doubled down, blasting the crowd for unacceptable behavior. Clips circulated of him glaring into the stands, a mix of fury and disbelief. Meanwhile, Donald wrapped this into his broader rebuttal to Bradley. It wasn't just about obscure rules, it was about respect. By calling out the fans, Donald widened the battlefield. Now the scandal wasn't just captains at war, it was Europe defends sportsmanship while America loses control. Bradley, for his part, stayed silent on the crowd issue, which only made Donald's critique louder. The optics? Europe looked disciplined, principled. The US looked chaotic, undignified, and at the mercy of its own fans. What was supposed to be Bethpage pride turned into Bethpage shame, and Donald seized the moment to elevate himself from captain to guardian of golf's soul. If you had to choose, who came out looking stronger, Bradley with his fire or Donald with his calm defense? Hit the comments, and while you're here, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next Ryder Cup twist.
Each Ryder Cup captain has a really awkward assignment. He has to choose the player on his team that he trusts the least.
Once the press room dust settled, the pundit class swooped in like vultures circling a fresh carcass. And, predictably, the split-screen narrative emerged. Bradley, the bold truth-teller, versus Bradley, the sore loser. Golf Channel and Sky Sports filled hours dissecting whether Bradley's outrage was courageous or desperate. Some commentators praised him for exposing a relic rule that has been left unscrutinized for decades. Others accused him of whining, pointing out that the envelope has existed through Ryder Cups, where the US benefited too. Donald's cool defense earned him points in the court of public opinion. Analysts lauded his ability to stay measured while under fire, painting him as a captain with gravitas. Bradley, meanwhile, was described as emotional and raw, words that sound sympathetic until you realize they translate to not in control. Social media, however, spun Bradley's anger into viral content. Clips of his "it has to change" rant racked up millions of views on TikTok and Instagram Reels. Fans debated whether he was a crusader for fairness or simply making excuses. Donald's soundbites, polished and careful, didn't trend nearly as hard, but among insiders and journalists, his gravitas carried weight. By midweek, opinion columns framed the whole thing like a courtroom drama: tradition versus reform, emotion versus logic, optics versus outcomes. And in that framing, Donald walked away as the steady hand while Bradley looked like a man shaking his fist at the clouds. The debate wasn't over who won the cup. It was over who won the narrative.
I have to get to the worst part of the day, aside from losing, which is Victor Hovland. Worst thing that's ever happened in professional sports. This envelope rule, if a guy tweaks his neck, the guy that he was supposed to play doesn't get any benefit out of it. When you're hurt, you lose, like every other sport.
The Ryder Cup may be finished, but the fallout is only beginning. Bradley's three-word grenade. It has to change. Ensured that the envelope rule is now under full-scale review. Committees from the PGA, DP World Tour, and Ryder Cup Europe are already under pressure to consider reforms. Possible fixes are floating. Allow captains to name alternates, award a full point instead of a half, or scrap the envelope entirely. Each option brings new complications: roster depth, fairness, and whether adding alternates dilutes the drama of the Cup. But one thing is certain: Bradley forced the issue into the spotlight, and it won't be ignored before 2027 at Adair Manor. Donald, meanwhile, exits Bethpage with his reputation fortified. He didn't just win on hostile soil, he held composure while navigating a scandal that could have stained his captaincy. If Bradley becomes the face of change, Donald becomes the face of tradition. Two captains, two legacies, now permanently linked by one obscure piece of paper sealed in an envelope. For players and fans, Bethpage 2025 won't be remembered as 1513 Europe. It will be remembered as the Cup hijacked by paperwork, the tournament where golf's politest tradition turned into a powder keg. And whether Bradley is ultimately vindicated or dismissed, the controversy guarantees one thing: the Ryder Cup's next chapter will be written not just with putts and pressure, but with policy. Bethpage might be over, but this fight isn't. Do you think the envelope rule survives until 2027, or does Bradley's rant force a change? Comment your prediction, and don't forget to like and subscribe, because this story's just getting started.